Today we continue Mahasatipatthana Sutta. First, Ekāyano Satipatthana. Buddha mentioned, Ita bhikkhave bhikkhu kāye Ekāyano viharati atapi sambhajano satima. Vineya loke bhikkhudhamanassānaṃ. Atapi sambhajano satima. Satima, last words in this sentence. Satima, mindful. Mindfulness is put last here, but actually in practice, mindfulness should come after atapi. Yogi make effort, so you have mindfulness. You have mindfulness, so you have concentration. And concentration leads to samvajana, clear comprehension. So you have mindfulness here, but we have already defined mindfulness, so we do not need to define it again. A practitioner monk dwells contemplating the body in the body. A practitioner, yogi practice the foundations of mindfulness on the body, being ardent, making true effort. Being mindful and being thoroughly aware of the object and having concentration and clear comprehension. So how many components do we now have? Atapi, ardent is one component. Sambhajano, clear comprehension is another component. Samadhi, concentration is yet another. And satima, mindfulness, another. So you have 4 mental states here. These 4 mental states are the components of the practice. When you practice, there must be these 4 mental states working together harmoniously. But there is one more mental stage which is not mentioned here, and that is saddha, faith or confidence. Faith is also an important factor because if we do not have confidence in this practice, we do not practice. We do not really have blind faith, but we have faith in the Buddha, faith in his teaching. We believe that just by paying attention to this object, we will be able to see the true nature of these namarupa, the impermanent, unsatisfactory, and non-soul nature. So we should have that much confidence, because without confidence, no work can be successful. So confidence is also a part of the practice of meditation. And although it is not actively operating, at the moment of meditation, at the moment of practice of mindfulness, It is stayed there working harmoniously with the other factors. So altogether, we get 5 factors, and these are the 5 factors that are called 5 mental faculties. You know Indriyas in Pali. These 5 factors must be working simultaneously and harmoniously with each other if we are to have a good practice of meditation. In the beginning, we may be lacking in clear comprehension, but later, when our concentration develops, we'll be able to see Namarupa clearly and so on. And these 5 components will be working in harmony. What if they do not work in harmony? We are lost. When we are practicing, especially important is the balance of effort and concentration. If effort and concentrations are not balanced, if there is an excess of one or the other, we are lost. Our meditation is nothing. Let us see more detail. A yogi who has too much faith and less wisdom or understanding may take anything to be right. So he may not get the right information about practice, and he may take up a wrong practice. And also when practicing meditation, excess of faith can interfere with meditation. When a yogi begins to see the Namarupa clearly, begin to see mind and matter distantly and separately, and when yogi begins to see the arising and disappearing of these Namarupas, what happened? Amanusirati hoti. Yogi becomes happy. Yogi becomes elated. And if he has too much faith, he will be very pleased with himself, and he may be thanking to the Buddha for this clear experience. Or he may be thanking to his teacher for this experience and so on. So yogi has so much devotion for the Buddha that his mind is agitated. Oh, I will share this Dharma to my families. I will share this Dharma to someone. I will do charity. I will do future practice and a lot of planning, because so much faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So his mind is agitated. When his mind becomes agitated, he lost concentration, he cannot see the namarupa. He cannot see the objects clearly, and meditation objects fade away from him, and he loses the namarupa also. So that is when a yogi who has too much faith, in such cases, yogi should understand that he has too much faith, and then slow down his practice or make notes of that. He has too much faith. So he have to note faith, faith, faith. Saddha, that mental state capture. Thoroughly aware of that mental state, saddha, faith, faith, faith. And after a while, his mind becomes stable again, and he will get concentration. Sometimes yogis see the objects clearly and begin to see the arising and disappearing of nama and rupa. If he is the type of those who have too much understanding, a person who has vitaka nature, vitaka charita, then he may be thinking about the nama rupa, whether it is nama, it is mind or metta, or he may want to try watching this mental state, that this object, this objects, and so on. Because he has so clear understanding of the objects, so his mind becomes agitated again. When mind becomes agitated, he is unstable to see the namarupa clearly, and he loses the objects. He loses concentration, and he loses the understanding. In such cases also, a yogi has to be mindful that he has too much understanding, too much activity in his mind, and so he must slow down. Once he slows down, his mind becomes stabilized again, and so he is able to be mindful of the objects. He is able to see the objects clearly again. And the faith and understanding should be balanced. They should be balanced both outside meditation and inside meditation. Outside meditation also, faith and understanding should be balanced. If the person have too much faith and too little understanding, then he will believe in anything. If he has too much understanding and too little faith, he tends to become crafty. He tends to become deceitful. But when he is practicing, if he has too much faith or too much understanding, his mind becomes agitated and he loses concentration. So they should be balanced. And sometimes Yogi's meditation is good and he can be mindful of the objects pretty well, and then he wants to make it better, so he make more effort to make it better. The moment he tried to make it better, he loses concentration. He is not able to note the objects. He is not able to see the objects clearly. That is because he has made too much effort, more than is necessary. So too much effort makes his mind agitated again. When mind is agitated, that means shaking, it cannot see clearly. The agitation of mind is called shaking above the objects, shaking above the namarupa. Shaking above the namarupa means the mind is not properly on the objects, the mind is not stuck to the objects as it were. But it is a little away from the objects and shaking above it or moving above it. When it is shaking or moving, it cannot see the objects clearly. So a yogi who has made too much effort becomes agitated and lose objects and lose concentration. When a person has too much effort, the level of concentration goes down. His concentration is weak at that time. Not enough. In such cases, a yogi should slow down his practice. Be mindful that his effort is too much and regulate accordingly so that he see the objects clearly again. Sometimes yogi concentration is so good that it becomes too easy for him to make notes or to be mindful of the objects. When it becomes too easy, his energy level or the level of effort goes down. Because he do not take some other objects. Some other objects he cannot capture properly because he take that few objects. Because concentration is so good. So he don't have to make much effort to be mindful, and so he lose the effort. When effort goes down and concentration becomes too much, then he feel sleepy. Many yogis have that kinds of experience. Sometimes concentration is so good, and then present objects arising and disappearing, they miss. Sometimes yogis feel sleepy not because he wants to sleep, but because they have too much concentration. When he have such an experience, then he have to set up energy level, or he has to make more effort to be mindful, to pay close attention to the objects, and he can add some more objects to note at one time. Suppose he's noting just two in, out, or rising, falling. Then he has to add one or two more, like sitting or touching points, so that his energy level rise up. The practice of meditation is delicate business, so he has to understand whether any one of the factors are in excess. If any one of them is too much, then he has to know how to regulate them, how to adjust them. You will understand when teacher gives instruction. Teacher gives instruction to be mindful of two things at the same time, two things at a time, in, out, or rising, falling. Why not just one or three or more? That is in order for yogis to have balance of effort and concentration. If he take just one and be mindful of that one object, it becomes easy. You just take note, sitting, is easy. So you lose energy little by little. So you have too much concentration. And then you feel sleepy and you cannot meditate. If you have to make notes of 3, 4, or 5 objects, that is in the beginning of your practice, when your concentration and understanding are not yet strong, you become agitated because you have to do too much work. When you become agitated still, you lose concentration. In order for you to have balance of these two factors, you are given to be mindful of two things: rising, falling, rising, falling. And also, you are given to practice walking meditation and sitting meditation alternately. If you walk too much, you make more effort, so the effort becomes too much. That is why walking for 1 hour is a standard practice. And also giving you walking is for your body to have exercise. It is for your health also. So it is important that these factors are well balanced when you practice meditation. Satima, what about sati? Mindfulness. It is the main mental factors. Mindfulness is need not to not be imbalanced with any faculties. Mindfulness must be constant, powerful, sustained, and uninterrupted. So mindfulness is required everywhere. That means mindfulness can never be too much. It may be too little, but it can never be too much. A yogi may have noticed that mindfulness is required in keeping them in balance. It adjusts everything. So yogi know, now I have made too much effort, and then you may have making notes of too much effort, or too much concentration, and so on. Or with this mindfulness, you can regulate the balance of the factors. Mindfulness is said to be regulating factors among the 5 mental faculties. It is compared to shaking salt on all dishes because it is required everywhere. Or it is compared to a prime minister who did all the works for the king. So mindfulness is always good. It can never be in excess. It is regulating factors, adjusting factors among the 5 mental faculties. Actually, there is another mental factors that regulate the balance of these factors, and that is upekkha, equanimity. Equanimity is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment, bujjhanga. When you reach the stage of equanimity, again, these factors work in harmony. So long as these factors work in harmony, your meditation is good. And you will get concentration and penetration into the true nature of nama and rupa. When you practice meditation, be aware of excess of faith or understanding or effort or concentration. If they are not balanced, you cannot meditate or your concentration is not good. You cannot get concentration or understanding of the nature of nama rupa. So these 5 factors, especially the 4 factors, should be balanced when we practice. And it is for this purpose that we not only things as a time, not more or not fewer. And also we alternate sitting and walking so that we do not have too much energy or too much concentration. By regulating the balance of these mental faculties, yogi will be able to get concentration. With the help of concentration, yogi will be able to see the true nature of the objects you observe. So what is the true nature, Rudy? True nature? true nature are nature, dukkha, anatta. Impermanent nature, unsatisfactory nature, and non-self nature. So these three nature, true nature, are called the common characteristics of all conditioned phenomena. Everything in this world is conditioned, so everything in the world is, everything in this world has these three marks or three characteristics. Everything is impermanent, and everything is unsatisfactory, and everything is unsubstantial, or we call it not so. So the impermanent nature we try to see through vipassana meditation is a deeper understanding of the impermanence, not the superficial understanding. You drop a cup and it breaks, and what you understand is a nature, impermanent nature. That understanding of impermanent is piñña nature, piññati nature. That piññati nature is very shallow. The cup breaks down. So that shallow understanding cannot help us to get wearied with the five aggregates. So it cannot lead us to ultimately enlightenment. So what we need to see is the moment-to-moment impermanence. So moment-to-moment impermanence is what a nature? Paramattha nature. Ultimate. It is ultimate. Moment-to-moment impermanence. Now we go back to the cup again. What do you think? The cup is permanent before it breaks. The cup is permanent or impermanent? Impermanent. Yes. So whether the cup breaks, or whether it doesn't break, it is impermanent. It is a nature. So every moment, actually, rupa material in the cups are changing. So changing means one rupa disappears and then another rupa arises in this place. So it is the old rupa disappearing and then new rupas arising in its place. It may be the same kinds of rupa or maybe identical, but one rupa disappears and another rupa takes its place. So that is what we understand impermanence in nature. So we must see that the kinds of impermanence, if we are to get wearied with the five aggregates and to get enlightenment. And that understanding we can get only through vipassana. Only through observing the objects at the present moment. So that is what we do when we practice meditation. So if we have enough concentration, then we will see that moment to moment impermanence, paramat nature. This is ultimate impermanence. So when you see the moment to moment impermanence, you also see the dukkha nature, unsatisfactory nature of namarupa, that things are constantly oppressed by arising and disappearing, arising and disappearing. So there is a sense of oppression there. When you see them, when you know that they are impermanent by their nature, and you cannot change them to permanency. You cannot change them into satisfactory. And there is a kinds of understanding of anatta, uncontrollable nature. Anatta means having no control over namarupa. We do not have control over mind and matter. They arise and disappear as they wish. So these three characteristics we will be able to see through the practice of meditation, but not just through reading or listening to the Dhamma talk. Only when we see in this way deeply, we can say that we see the three characteristics, and only when we see the three characteristics, there can be weariness in what is nama and rupa, or suffering nature, truth of suffering. And that weariness in suffering is the path to purity. And then the Vinaya Loke Abhijadomanassa. When the five mental factors are working in balance, a yogi is clearly comprehending, then what is the result? Result is Vinaya Loke Abhijadomanassa. Result is you overcome abhijja and domanassa. Abhijja, covetousness; domanassa, grief. Grief. So you overcome covetousness and grief in the world. That is the result you get from clear comprehending in the practice of mindfulness meditation. Now here, most English translation missed the point. They translate it as having overcome covetousness and grief, or having abandoned covetousness and grief, or having removed covetousness and grief in the world. So why you practice? What the practice for? What is mindfulness practice for? It is for overcoming covetousness and grief. It is to remove covetousness and grief. Abhijja, covetousness means attachment, and domanassa, grief means ill will or anger. So vipassana meditation is for overcoming abhijja and domanassa, covetousness and grief. If yogi has already overcome covetousness and grief, you do not need to practice. For this very purpose, we are practicing mindfulness. But if we have already achieved this purpose, we do not need to practice mindfulness. So here we should translate it as Vinaya Loke bhikkhave, overcoming at the same time covetousness and grief in the world, and not having overcome. Not having overcome. That means you overcome covetousness and grief as you practice mindfulness. So we need to be aware of this translation. Here an explanation with reference to Pali grammatical construction would be helpful. But since it would be too involved, we have no choice but to ignore it. Vinaya Loke bhikkhave, overcoming covetousness and grief in the world means avoiding craving or attachment or anger or ill will concerning the objects you are observing. Loke, in the world. So how do you understand world, loka? The world of kaya, body, the worlds of vedana, feeling, the world of kaya vedana, citta, consciousness, and the worlds of dhamma, or the worlds of rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana, 5 khandhas, 5 lokas. So you see one object and you can be attached to that object. So we come to the conclusion that it is beautiful or it is good, we will be attached to it. And we can have anger or hatred towards that object if we decided it was ugly or disgusting. So these mental defilements can come into our minds when we experience something. In order to prevent them from arising, we need to make some protection, and that protection is mindfulness. When we are mindful, they will not get a chance to get into our minds. When we are mindful, when we comprehend clearly, and when we see the objects clearly, we know that these objects come and go. These objects are impermanent, and so not to be attached to them. So we can avoid covetousness and attachment and grief or hatred regarding that nama-rupa by the practice of mindfulness. Whether we say overcoming or removing or whatever, actually we are avoiding them, we are preventing them from arising. Not that they have come and then we overcome them or we remove them after they have come. The meaning really is preventing covetousness and grief from arising in our minds. If we do not practice mindfulness on the objects, they will surely come, either covetousness or grief, or attachment or hatred. So these mental states can come, but by the practice of mindfulness, we can prevent them from coming, preventing them from arising in our minds is what is meant by overcoming them. But if they have arisen, of course, we should make them the objects of our attention to eliminate them. So we will continue next week. We have to stop our discourse for today. By practicing vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at the six senses, by noting kaya, vedana, citta, dhamma, or rupa, vedana, saññā, saṅkhāra, and vijñāna, by noting rising, falling, sitting, touching, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, bending, stretching continuously and meticulously. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all yogis realize the real peace in the very near future.